Thanks to some leaked set photos from the solo Black Widow film, it seems that we may finally be seeing one of the Avengers' most notorious villains making his way to the big screen. Taskmaster, the trainer of some of the universe's deadliest antagonists and master of basically every fighting style ever, is coming to make Natasha Romanoff's day just a little bit more difficult. But what if his presence in Black Widow isn't just a one-off? What if this means bigger things for the Marvel Cinematic Universe as a whole? In this video, we will take a look at who exactly the Taskmaster is, what he's capable of, and how he could potentially shape the future of not only Phase 4, but the MCU as we know it. So sit back, relax, and let's learn all about Taskmaster. Before we get into how Taskmaster is going to absolutely rock the MCU to its very core, we should probably take some time to actually explain who the guy is. Since it is usually safe to assume that not everyone who watches Marvel movies is a big fan of the comics, so you might not even know who the heck this guy is. Tony Masters, aka Taskmaster, had a relatively normal childhood. That is, until he discovered that he could perfectly mimic the movements of anyone he watched, including one time when he nailed a dive into a pool after watching a professional diver perform the move only once. As he grew up, he utilized this ability to get ahead in life. Eventually, Masters joined up and became an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., where he only grew stronger and stronger. More on that later. For a while, it looked like Masters was on track to become a certified superhero. However, Masters decided to go in the completely opposite direction, becoming a supervillain instead. Why, you ask? Well, because the money was better. Of course. How exactly do heroes make money anyways? That's something that isn't really talked about all that often. Government subsidies? Donations? Do the Avengers have a Patreon? Yeah, villainy sounds like a much more secure way to go, financially speaking. So I can't really blame the guy, I guess. This is around the time that Masters first took up the name Taskmaster, donning for the first time his iconic skull mask, becoming a mercenary with basically no qualms, taking on some rather dubious contracts. But that really wasn't where Masters made his biggest mark in the world. Sure, his unique abilities made him a formidable fighter capable of taking on contracts, but the real money started to roll in when he began training others to fight like the best of them. He trained not only crime lords on how to take down major threats like the Avengers, but also their henchmen, seriously upping the threats these criminal enterprises posed to masked heroes everywhere. Eventually, this training caught the attention of the Avengers, who faced off against Masters. He was able to hold them off pretty handedly, as he had learned how to counter their styles perfectly. It wasn't until the robot Jocasta entered the fray that Masters was stopped, as Jocasta was both rather new and a robot, making it more difficult for Masters to predict her attacks. This marked the beginning of Masters' long history with the heroic team, as he would go on to face off against the Avengers on numerous other occasions, becoming a rather common adversary for the team. Not to mention the amount of trouble he was able to indirectly cause the team, as already formidable supervillains began to train under him in order to take out individual members of the team. Eventually, Masters did spend some time as less of a villain and more of an anti-hero, even serving as a member of the Secret Avengers for a time before returning to his mercenary ways. To get a better grasp on what exactly Masters is capable of, let's take a look at his powers and abilities, of which his most noteworthy has got to be his ability to copy the movements of others. As we said a bit earlier in the video, Masters discovered at a young age that he could mimic the movements of others, but it goes a bit beyond just basic mimicry. Masters possesses something called photographic reflexes. It's like having a photographic memory, but on a whole other level. I guess a more accurate name would be photographic muscle memory. He can see someone do something, like throw a punch or play the piano, and his muscles take that knowledge and are able to replicate the movements on cue perfectly. Not just once, but any time Masters wants. This ability was further heightened during his time as a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent, when he was injected with an experimental super soldier serum that was created by the Nazis during World War II. This serum not only heightened his physical capabilities, as one would expect from a super soldier serum, but also made his memory-based powers even more hyperactive, allowing him to learn things nearly instantaneously. However, this comes at a cost. As Masters learns new skills or movements, he begins to forget less active memories. Think of his brain like a computer's hard drive. As he adds new files, things need to be deleted to make room. In this case, his brain chooses to delete his cherished childhood memories as opposed to something like how Captain America specifically throws a punch. But I mean, honestly, this is a pretty fair trade-off, as in return he can copy a person's body movements to such a degree that he can even copy their vocal cords. Yeah, he can mimic their voices. It's just like the Ghostface in Scream 3, except without the impossible voice changer. Man, that thing was really dumb. Just really brought that movie down a peg. Anyways, because of his ability, Masters has pretty much mastered every single fighting style known to man, including the very specific individual styles of numerous heroes and villains. His knowledge of fighting styles is so good that he is even able to predict people's next attack by reading their body language. The only hero to really be able to get past this with any sort of consistency is good old Deadpool, whose psychotic nature makes him so unpredictable that even Taskmaster himself can't figure out what the heck the guy's gonna do. I don't even think he knows what he's going to do. As I mentioned, Masters also has heightened physical capabilities, including limited superhuman speed. He discovered that he could move up to 2 times faster than a normal human by watching martial arts movies on fast forward and attempting to mimic what he saw just as he saw it. However, as the human body was of course not meant to move at such speeds, he can only do this sort of thing for a limited amount of time before risking serious injury to himself. Imagine moving your arms so fast that the bones in them just simply shatter under the stress that you're putting them through. That's basically what would happen. Sounds painful. And since he is pretty quick, you'd imagine that he would have some pretty fast reflexes to boot. And you'd be right. His reflexes are so fast, in fact, that he's managed to pull off some pretty crazy feats. On top of that, he possesses superhuman agility, on par with heroes such as Spider-Man or Daredevil. So okay, now that you've got a pretty good grasp of who exactly Tony Masters is and what he's capable of, let's take a look at how we here at ScreenRant think Masters could leave a lasting impact on the MCU moving forward. At least a bigger impact than most one-off villains in previous Marvel movies. I'm looking at you, Malekith. Nobody remembers you. So, okay, let's assume for a second that the character in those leaked set photos from the Black Widow movie is indeed Taskmaster, as basically everyone and their mother is assuming. That gives us a solid baseline for any sort of theorizing that we could get into. Let's also assume that this movie was going to take place in the past, before Romanoff was introduced in Iron Man 2. That sounds kind of reasonable, though honestly this idea works as long as the movie takes place before Endgame, because, you know, she dead. Okay, now that we have all that sorted, let's look at how Taskmaster could work in the MCU, and why he might be a bigger deal than most other antagonists. With the Black Widow solo film, he could really go a few different ways. We could see him as the main antagonist, on the level of characters such as Obadiah Stane or Ronan, you know, the guy who is causing all of the issues for our hero. Or he could pop up as a secondary villain, like Crossbones. Either way, it is my firm belief that he will not be permanently killed off at the end of the film. Perhaps he will appear to have been killed off, but you know the old film rule, don't see a body, they aren't dead. So Masters will appear to be dead and will be able to go into hiding, biding his time until he feels the heroes, specifically the Avengers, are at their weakest. Like during the aftermath of Endgame, when a good number of our heroes are out of the picture, including Natasha Romanoff, who he had previously faced off against in her solo film. So he's waited a long time. What is his master plan exactly? Well, remember how I said that Masters was most well known in the comics as someone who trained other villains to take on heroes? Well, ponder this. What if in Phase 4 of the MCU, the villains begin to become much more formidable, even to the point that they sometimes win against the heroes when they otherwise wouldn't have in the past? Imagine if someone like Mac Gargan, who was introduced in Spider-Man Homecoming as what amounts to a petty criminal, popped up and gave the webhead a hard time, even head-to-head. I'm talking about bad guys becoming inexplicably good at doing bad stuff. The heroes would be befuddled, unable to comprehend the seemingly insane increase in power of their enemies. Behind them all would be Masters, training up villains in order to take down the heroes, working to build up an army of allies to take down the Avengers. Now, why would he want to do this? What would taking out the Avengers really achieve, besides just getting rid of those pesky heroes? Well, it's simple. What would be better for a mercenary to have on his resume than having beaten the most powerful beings in existence? Yep, it's all about them dollar bills, y'all. In the comics, Masters has made it abundantly clear that money is his largest motivator. It's why he became a villain over a hero in the first place. And there is no bigger payday than being the mercenary who took down the Avengers. So basically what I'm proposing here is that Taskmaster is going to be a sort of puppet master, pulling the strings in the background until he ultimately winds up becoming the big bad of a major team-up film. be it an Avengers film or otherwise. Then again, maybe he'll just wind up serving as a one-off villain, being taken down by Romanoff before we ever really get to see him live up to his full potential. Who knows? We'll just have to wait and see where the movies take him. What do you think about Taskmaster joining the Marvel Cinematic Universe? What sort of impact do you think he's going to have on the future of the MCU, if any at all? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below, and while you're down there, why not consider subscribing to ScreenRant for even more great videos like this in your feed each and every day. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you at the movies.